Hello, Group Pratik. Thank you very much for taking time and joining me in this broadcast today. How are you today?
Hey Labraj, I'm good, man. It's late here. Trying not to be sleepy.
I'm very, very excited for you to share your experience with all our international students who are watching this video. And I'm sure they're going to get a lot of benefit out of this video, once we share your experience about your MBA and the whole journey, the whole
hmm
process of MBA. My first question to you is if you can please tell our viewers a bit about yourself, where you're from, what have you done so far?
Sure. So again, like any normal student, I guess an Indian student, I did my 12 standards, and either I had two options: be a doctor or be an engineer. So I chose engineering.
Okay. Okay.
And at that time, the computer science or electronics were two fields that were really hyped up. So I ended up taking computer science. So I did my undergrad in computer science from Guru Nanak Engineering College, Ludhiana, Punjab. Yeah, after that, 4 years of undergrad, then I got campus placement in one of the information technology companies, HCL Technologies, which was based out of Noida. So yeah, I've spent 2 3 years working there, and then I decided to pursue higher education, where I ended up in Canada pursuing MBA. So after MBA, job search, and yeah, today I'm working again in an IT company over here in Canada. It's called OpenText. So yeah, I've been
Okay.
there ever since I graduated. Other than that, I do enjoy watching sports, soccer, Formula One. Those are my interests. I do try to stay active. I go for a workout whenever I can.
That's great. Lovely. Thank you very much. So I've got a few questions for you. Why were you interested in continuing your education after completing your bachelor's in technology and having, 3+ years of experience? And that's one question that usually have that they have completed their bachelor's already. They are
Mhm.
working in some company. They're making good money. And then they're confused whether to go for continuing education, masters, or PGD or something or not. Well, what was your reason? Why did you choose one?
No, that's a great question, Lavraj. And there are multiple reasons, and the reasons could be different for different people. But in general, in our group that was there working in HCL, right? So we were of the same age group, and everybody was kind of playing around with that question, whether to continue working or is that it's. I guess it comes naturally. Like after working in the same place or in a career for 2 3 years, you do start asking those questions to yourself. You have to decide then what's the next step for you. What people would generally do, either they would switch companies, go for higher salary packages, right? Or they would try to switch roles if they can. Other option is they could benefit from deep diving into the area of work that they finally entered into, right? So there are benefits to having a higher education or a master's degree, right? You can move up in your career at a faster pace. So you start analyzing all those things at that point of your career. So yeah, to answer your question, my reasons were wanting to acquire better skills, because I did started realizing that I was lacking in some areas which are required to be like a manager or a leader. Other salary and compensation were other factors. You cannot compare a North American employee with a sub employee from subcontinent, even though you are doing the same job, but it's a harsh truth, but the salaries are different. So that was also a factor. I felt right that you had to make that move. Otherwise, if I didn't do that, then I would have again tried to switch jobs or find a better compensation package or something. I hope that answered your question.
Got it. Sure, it was a tough decision to make, when you're settled and you have a job, you're making money, and then all of a sudden leaving that job, leaving that money, and rather spending money on, and loads of money on, choosing the right program and all. So why did you choose MBA? Why did you want to pursue MBA? You could have done Masters in Technology, there are
Mm-hmm.
postgraduate diplomas. What made you choose an MBA degree though?
It's more fancy, I guess. No, I basically wanted, as I said, my interest was more in the leadership side and the management side. So naturally, MBA was an option to go for.
Okay.
Also, the general skills like the personality development and the communication skills that you need to succeed in the long term, working in a company, or even if you plan to start your own business at some point of time. I felt that I hadn't acquired, or I hadn't had a chance in my whatever education I've gone through. I have an environment to grasp those skills. And also, one thing that MBA offers, it offers you a chance or an opportunity to switch your career. I won't say I was very good in the IT field or whatever role I was working in. I was not able to make a decision over 3 years that this is the field that I want to stay in. So I was still 50-50, and which meant that doing a master's in a field that I'm not sure about wasn't an option for me, right? So I felt that I could, get a wider knowledge of all the different fields in business. And then maybe that will give me an opportunity later on if I'm not interested in IT, if I want to go into supply chain or some operations management, at least I'll have an education to support me in those changes in my career. So that was another reason.
That is great. So you opened up your options. There were a lot of different streams available where you could have gone and to learn something new rather than just sticking around in what you know, which was technology. My next question to you is, how did you figure out what kind of MBA you were interested in?
So when you say the type or kind of MBA, I guess you're talking about the length of the programs as well as specialization they offered.
Right.
Again, I did not have a very clear idea. I'll be very frank. So, people do benefit. So I knew I had to do MBA, but I didn't really have any preference for program or a school at that point, right? So my focus was on the exams you have to write, which are accepted by the international universities. So GMAT, for example, is the one that students go for, and then start applying. I knew I was going to come to Canada, so you could decide based on the province you want to go in, and then from province you can dive into different schools and different cities that are there in the province, right? And almost every city has a public university here, right? So that's how I narrowed down basically. So choose the country where you want to go, any preference for province or state, right? Then, you go down to the schools. And when it comes to schools or universities, almost every university is pretty good here, right? So I kind of had an idea about that. So I didn't really have any preference. At the same time, I knew that I was not an IIT material. You know where you belong, right? So if I was an IIT or IIM material, then I would have probably had very high preferences. There are one or two schools like DGroot, McMaster. So there are some names. If you pick up the rankings, they will come in the top 100 or top 200. But I knew that was not what I was aiming for. As long as I had a decent GMAT score, I had my experience to show. And that's what the schools are looking for, basically. They are looking for experienced candidates who can add to the classroom with their diverse experience. That makes up for a decent discussions in the class. Everybody can learn from each other. So those are the skills that also matter rather than simply having a score for some exam. Country, province, city, and then decide the school and aim for it. From an MBA specialization perspective, I had a general idea about supply chain operations, but I found out that those are optional subjects. So once you go through your basic coursework, which includes all the pillars of business, HR, finance, accounting. So they anyway teach you all the fields of MBA, and then you can decide which field you want to pursue, right? So you have all the subjects are available. The more weightage you give to a certain subject or field, that's how you end up doing a specialization. So some people keep it general, some take more subjects for a certain field. I didn't really have much preference in that. So I did what it's called a general MBA.
Got it. Right. So I've got two more questions. You just discussed about GMAT. So that was one of the entrance exams, mandatory for most of the good universities. Above average universities, they look for GMAT examination. It's like, something that really scares a lot of international students, So my question to you is that how did you prepare for GMAT? How much time it took you? When did you start, preparing for GMAT? And did you take any extra help like coaching from any coaching center, or you did everything on your own from online resources?
Again, all good questions. I may have difficulty recalling. There are certain timelines that you should start to follow when you are 100% sure that this is what you want to do. You want to move abroad and you want to pursue higher education. So that's what I did as well. So I think 6 months prior, or even let's say 9 months prior to the day or the date when I wish to move abroad, I had started preparing for GMAT. Again, if you are an undergrad, and you are from an engineering field, it's not something you should be scared of. The syllabus, whatever the criteria is, it's pretty simple. What they test is your 8th, 9th, 10th standard mathematics. It's not the difficult. It's not the typical one from +1 and +2, which most of us are scared of. The English part is, again, they want to test your analytical skills. I thought that exam was pretty good building block to prepare you for what was gonna happen next. So I took it as a learning experience rather than being scared of it. And yeah, I did go to an institute, but I think I really benefited from learning on my own.
So after giving the GMAT examination, getting a good score, now the time was to choose out of different schools available, which school you should go for. So could you tell me which institution, which university you picked, and where is that university located?
Sure. As I mentioned before, country, province, state, city, right? So I got an offer from Wilfrid Laurier University, which is based out of Waterloo, Ontario. Waterloo, kind of this hidden gem, which is very pretty close to GTA area, Toronto area. So it's like a 1 hour drive. So it was a good area to come to. It does have some Indian population, but not too much. University is reputed. It does have good ranking for the undergrad. The MBA, it was not that well recognized, but again, that wasn't the problem for me. I ended up selecting Wilfrid Laurier.
Great. So let's talk about the real deal now. So you got into MBA. You are in Canada at Wilfrid Laurier. So one big question that comes to international students' mind is, how was your daily schedule like? Because you chose 1 year fast track MBA. So could you please share your experience about your daily schedule?
In one word, crazy. I had my option to go for 2 year or 1 year. I chose 1 year because of term they use called opportunity cost. The longer you stay in education, the longer you're losing out on the money that you could be making if you were working. My plan was to go for 1 year and just dive in, cut off all the noise for 1 year, because you literally need that kind of zoning out. So to come to the daily schedule, I had still slowly started realizing that there was no first, second, or third gear in a 1 year MBA. It starts in fourth, and then it goes to fifth or sixth, and it stays in that for full 365 days. I wouldn't call it fast track, but I would call it condensed. In total, there are 20 courses, and my coursework was spread out as 8 courses in the first 4 months, 6 in the second, and 6 in the third. And in the second and third term, you also have field project. That is a summary. Daily schedule for a 1 year program. It's like going back to +1 and +2. It's 8 to 4 or 8 to 5. You go into the school. There's one period after the other, and then there's one recess in the middle for 1 hour, and then again it continues. Once you come home, you have homework, assignments, team meetings. In MBA, group work is part of each and every course. You're divided into groups. You guys have to meet, find time to meet, if you like it or don't. The group has to meet. The group has to accomplish things together. Scheduling is a big part of it. Managing time, short lunches and dinners. It's almost like you're working, but you're not being paid to work. So yeah, hopefully that gives an idea to your viewers about the daily schedules. It was non-stop, basically. I would like to add, pace does change or does reduce after the first term because there are less number of subjects and there's more group work. But yeah, the first 4 months are crazy, surreal, because you are adjusting in a new country. And at the same time, there's no time to adjust, right? So you have to keep working, you like it or you don't. And once you get out of that, then you get into a routine, a habit.
So your daily education part, your classes were more or less like your senior year, and the rest of the schedule was as if you were actually working in a job, but not being paid for that job.
Exactly. Another thing about MBA, which I should mention, it's case-based education. Every day, professor is gonna go through a case, and you have to pre-read that case. So you have to do your homework for the current day, but you also have to prepare for the next day. But generally, when you talk about international education, you hear people working part-time, attending 2 or 3 classes in a week, and then they're free, and then they're doing all this other stuff. None of that is possible if you're pursuing a full-time MBA. There's going to be no time to earn extra money if you're going to rely on that. So your funds have to be in line. Your budget has to be exactly, you need to know your budget, your spending.
Right. So that's a great thing you mentioned about budgeting your education and living expenses. So could you please tell me what was your tuition fee and approximate living expenses over there for you?
Sure, Raj, for the year I pursued my grad, MBA tuition fee came out to be approximately $35 to $40,000, which I'm pretty sure has increased over the past 5 6 years. The living expenses, so I did have my GIC to rely on, which is $10,000.
So with all that tough schedule, daily schedule, were you able to get into some kind of networking with companies, or did your university support you, help you out with networking? And there's a thing called co-op and non-co-op. So did you pick a co-op opportunity in your program or not?
I'll first answer the co-op and non-co-op. It wasn't an option for me once I arrived here. Co-op, I would highly recommend to students to know the difference between the two, and if possible, get a co-op MBA. Co-op, it's similar to internship, so companies are really willing to hire you and give you that Canadian experience, that all important in quotes Canadian experience that you need to get into a job market. So yeah, I didn't know about that. Mine was non-co-op, so 1 year full time. Further networking opportunities. Yeah, the school tries their best. They do invite industry experts from time to time, invite companies in the area, but then also there are some larger networking events. So there's a University of Waterloo close by. Lots of talent in the area. So there are, I think, two big networking fairs, and there is also, goes without saying, there's a career help department in the university itself, right? So they help you prepare resumes, write resumes. They also have some job postings that are posted on their website. In addition to that, what I said, again, nobody's stopping you from approaching them. People really appreciate if you're taking time and if you're making that effort to reach out, have a coffee session, invite somebody. People over here or employers, they really appreciate that kind of approach. Always remember the end goal is to get a job. Aside from all the unsolicited networking, there's another way to acquire Canadian experience. One can approach not-for-profit organizations who do not pay you wages, but they still give you valid, recognized Canadian experience, which will help eliminate the catch-22. I personally did that as well, so I can speak from experience.
And most of the times, the nonprofits or these kind of jobs, it's not that they don't end up paying you anything. You do get loans, so sometimes from $500 to $1,000,
Yep.
which is additional to your GIC. What you have for your living expenses, you can take care of your daily expenses, through that allowance.
That is very true.
So, all right. So, at the end of the MBA, I mean, obviously, you got your degree, you applied for your work permit, you got it. But now is the real deal of finding a job, right? To go through all those networking events and everything that we discussed earlier. What worked for you?
I'm pretty sure I didn't do it the easy way. As far as I can remember, I was able to get one or two interviews from people that I had networked with during the coursework. So I did approach them. I sent an email letting them know that I met you at so and so day and so and so fair. I saw you were interested in my experience and skills. I'm gonna graduate in the next month. I see these opportunities, so you have to be. You can check on their website and stuff, right? Company's website. So I see this opportunity. So I was able to get an interview from a couple of companies that way, but that didn't end up working out for me. Just remember that the only way you can get a job is you have to keep applying, keep improving your resume, try to stay in touch with the university if you can, schedule appointments with the career center, go talk to people. Back home, you have certain expectations. If you do an MBA in India, you can go back to the same place or the same company. They will gladly offer you a managerial role. Again, I had to be truthful to myself, use that IT experience to get into the Canadian job market. That's the decision I had to make, even though I was pursued MBA with this idea that, maybe I'll be able to switch industries. I may have been able to do that, but that would have taken longer time. So I finished my MBA in August 2014, and I was working full time in October.
Right. So, good Pratik, that was great. Thank you very much for sharing your experience. I do have, one last thing to ask you over here. Like you mentioned, expectation versus reality. So looking back, so many years, when you finish your bachelor's in technology and you were working with one of the top companies, HCL, in your own field. If you look back now, would you have, taken the same decision now of taking an MBA, or would you have chose differently?
The advantage of hindsight is always very good. But then if you ask me if I would have made a different decision, I would say no, because what I've gained out of MBA intangibles, right, which are hard to show on a result card or a scorecard, right? So every day I go to work, my perspective is different than my colleagues. Even though I'm in the technical field or still doing more or less a technical job, I benefit from the education or the classroom experience that I had in MBA, because you're doing the course, reading the cases, you're tending to real life use cases, and being in the shoe of a CEO one day, a director the other day, shareholder or a board of directors. So you can really see and think from the perspective of the management. That's what basically you learn out of an MBA. Where I was able to move up at a much faster pace within the organization, which I would have done otherwise if I was in a purely technical role, right? So MBA sets you up with a mindset that results are important. Everything you do, all the work you do should be smart work. So yeah, I would still choose MBA. But if somebody is wanting to pursue an MBA simply from the perspective of switching their careers, I would tell them that it's not that easy. And I would also add here, I did have other students, my other fellow students, who were from different industries. Some were able to get a job very next day they graduated. Some were Canadians who had worked at a certain company in the undergrad. Basically they were able to go back to the same company. Some of our Indian students, they were in co-op, so they were able to go back to those companies. To your viewers and any prospective student, just make sure if you are gonna pursue MBA, you do it after having at least 2 years full-time experience. It could be more than that.
So what is your biggest takeaway from an MBA degree?
But if you were to ask me one biggest takeaway, I would say it's the time management. Every day you are in a routine working on multiple deliverables. You're managing your time, your schedule, and at the same time, you're prioritizing the one that comes before the other. Yeah, that sets you apart in your job environment as well, where anything can come up out of the blue. Anybody can do, I guess, squeeze in a task in a small amount of time, but how do you maintain quality while doing that? That's what you learn in an MBA. I would like to mention the secondary takeaway: communication skills and people skills, the intangibles, your body language, how to interact, how to not fear interactions with, managers or leaders, how to think like them. That is also the second biggest takeaway.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Gurpreet, for taking time out of your busy schedule. Like we discussed, time is money, and the value of time is something you really understood, you learned from your MBA. And again, thank you very much for taking, part of that, time from your busy schedule today for us, for our listeners, for the viewers. And I really hope that the international students who wish to pursue an MBA in Canada must have gained a lot of value, knowledge, and clarity on the overall MBA concept in Canada.
It's been a pleasure, Labraj. I'm just glad to be able to talk about this. It kind of helps me live some of those moments back again in my memory. And I really hope that we'll be able to help people, at least provide some fact, able to help one student. It will be worthwhile. So yeah, thanks for having me again.
Great. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.